Tom, explain to us first, this chart is showing, there was a massive drop, I guess, maybe at the very beginning of the pandemic, and suddenly people realized they needed to get around in a clean way, and perhaps it was worth buying as opposed to renting or taking public transportation. Is that what you attribute this record January to?
I think you're right. I mean, what's actually happened when the pandemic first struck back in March, our volume, just like everybody else's, was essentially cut in half. And then I would say probably towards the end of May, beginning part of June, the market really began to recover as people started to feel like they really had to start getting back to their lives. And really the last 6 months of the calendar year and into January, we were selling at essentially a 700,000 unit pace, which was the record year that we had in 2019. So we're very bullish on the opportunity that we could have here in 2021.
So let's just flesh that out a bit, Tom. There's a bit of uncertainty, of course, around when real normal returns, path of vaccine rollout, variants getting in the way. What do you think will happen when it comes to your sales this year?
Well, we think it's going to be the tale of two halves, if you will. The first half could be a little bit problematic until the rollout of the vaccine becomes more definitive and normal people can easily get the vaccine, in other words, through drugstores and so forth. I do think, though, in the second half of the year, with all the stimulus that's out there, and we've seen over the second half of last year, that the second half of this year could be really strong with the stimulus that's out there, plus the new stimulus that they're talking about. So we're looking, if you ask me, I think the market could be somewhere north of 16 million units next year, all things considered, given everything and all the positive signs that we're seeing out there from a market perspective.
So that's great. I mean, are you pulling forward some production given that, people are needing cars now, but they may not need them so much once vaccinations are out there? Are you really anticipating that this kind of sustained demand will continue into 2022?
We think it will. So far, we're not really seeing any shortfall in our demand metrics. In fact, if you look at our owner base and the fact that we know that a certain percentage of our owners have to come back every year, and you combine that with our owner loyalty and all of the demand that we're generating through all of our traditional sources, we think we think we're going to have a great year this year. In fact, we set a target for 660,000 vehicles for 2021, and we believe that if the market continues to progress like it has been, that we think there's a lot of upside potential to that estimate.
There have been concerns about this chip shortage in the ever, of course, technologically complex vehicle. How does that affect Subaru?
Well, we're just like everyone else. We're going to be affected in some regard. We know through March, the impact that we have is very minimal. After March, we don't know yet. And in fact, it's essentially almost like a week to week. Every 10 days, we had another estimate from our factories, whether they're in Japan or in Lafayette, Indiana, where we have our US-based production, giving us further updates on what the status of the chip situation is. I will say, as far as we're concerned, our chip situation has actually improved a little bit from about 10 days or so ago. So we're hopeful, we know there's going to be some impact, but we're hopeful that it doesn't impact us too much and that the inventory levels that we do have at our retailers and with what we have coming is going to be able to sustain us through until the chip shortage can be resolved.
So, Tom, we're not quite sure how the current administration is going to approach trade with various countries. For sure, it is likely to take advantage of some of the movement made under the Trump administration back towards domestic manufacturing. How are you preparing for the Biden administration and its posture on trade?
Well, we want to work with the Biden administration just like we work with the Trump administration to make sure that what's good for the U.S. economy continues to stay good. And we're very hopeful that a lot of the policies that Mr. Biden has talked about are ones that are going to help to benefit the U.S. economy and ultimately benefit the market. Because it's all about making sure that the market can continue to expand and more people can afford to get into vehicles. And so far from the indications that we're seeing, we're pretty confident in the Biden administration, and we're looking forward to working with them more directly.
Even as Americans wonder about the size and timing of their next stimulus package, many are still going hungry. Subaru just made its largest ever donation to a company to Feeding America. What drove that, Tom? Why is that a role for you to play?
Really good question, and thank you for asking that. We were very much impacted last April, in fact, when we saw the lines at various food banks around the country, particularly those in Florida and Texas last year. And we said to ourselves, what can we do to help? And last April, we donated 50 million meals to Feeding America. And then on January the 21st, we donated another 100 million meals. So over the two donations that we've made, we and our retailers have contributed over 150 million meals to Feeding America because we're so affected by the people that are hunger challenged. You know, 1 out of every 4 children in the United States is estimated to have some sort of hunger deficiency. And of course, this time of the year, I know typically a lot of food banks and so forth at the end of the year, they get a lot of donations. But it's this time of the year between now and March that the food banks are really in a need. And we're so happy that we're able to, do our part and help alleviate some of this hunger situation that's going on right now. So we're very happy to be partnering with Feeding America on this.